You don't chase success because you're greedy. You chase it because deep down, you're still trying to prove something to someone who probably isn't even watching anymore. That's the part no one says out loud. Most people aren't chasing a vision. They're running from a wound. Not consciously, of course. That would be too easy. Instead, it shows up in the little ways. The constant need to be better. The inability to rest without guilt. The obsession with becoming someone so impressive, so undeniable, that nobody could ever overlook you again. Here's the thing. What you call ambition might actually be fear in disguise. What you call drive might just be desperation for approval you didn't get as a kid. What looks like discipline is sometimes a trauma response with a productivity app on top. You feel it, don't you? That quiet panic underneath the praise? That sense that if you stop, even for a second, everything might fall apart? Maybe even you? That's the wound. And you're not alone. But before we go deeper, quick break. If this already feels uncomfortably accurate, hit like, subscribe, and share this with someone who's burning out in silence. This channel's all about the raw, often disturbing truth behind money, power, and identity, without the hustle bro nonsense or red pill poison. If you're ready to see, not just feel better, you're in the right place. Now, let's talk about you. Not the adult version everyone praises, but the kid version who learned that being good, being smart, being useful was the only way to stay safe. For some, it started with a parent who only noticed you when you achieved something. Noticed your grades, your trophies, your chores, but never your emotions. Love felt like a performance review, and you got addicted to passing it. For others, it wasn't neglect, but chaos. Maybe you had to grow up too fast, take care of siblings, manage the mood swings of an unstable parent, make yourself small so others could be loud, be strong so others could fall apart. And over time, you internalized a rule. If I'm not useful, I'm not lovable. Fast forward to adulthood, and guess what? You're now high-achieving. You're self-made. You're on fire. But the match you lit was shame. You think you're building a future, but really you're still trying to survive a past that never got processed. Because success is safe. It's socially rewarded. It looks like healing on the outside, but it's not. It's just a better costume. Here's a hard truth. The world claps for the mask you built to hide your wound. It promotes you for it, pays you for it, quotes you for it. But it doesn't know you, and sometimes neither do you. You've been sprinting toward an image, a version of yourself that can't be criticized, can't be rejected, can't be abandoned. That's not growth. That's armor. Let's pause here. Ask yourself, what would happen if I stopped trying to impress people? Not just in theory, but in practice. No humble brags, no curated wins, no extra hours to prove your worth. Would you feel proud or exposed? That answer tells you everything. Because here's what most successful people won't admit. They don't feel successful. They feel safe-ish. Because the success isn't feeding them, it's protecting them. From judgment, from insignificance, from the terror of being seen as ordinary. You don't need $1 billion. You need to know that you're still worthy if you never earn another one. You don't need more followers. You need to feel seen without performing. You don't need to work harder. You need to believe you're still lovable when you rest. Until that happens, you'll stay addicted to achievement and allergic to stillness. Let's bring it closer to the body. Ever notice how your shoulders stay tight even when you're done for the day? Or how you reflexively check your phone for feedback? Or how rest only feels good when it's earned, not chosen? That's not ambition. That's anxiety dressed as discipline. Most self-help books won't tell you this. They sell you routines, not root causes. They say, wake up at 5 a.m., not ask yourself who you're trying to outrun. But we will. Because here's the truth that will hurt before it heals. You became excellent at something not because you were free to explore, but because you were terrified of being invisible. You mastered skills because you thought that being the best was the only way to be safe. You created a future, but it was built on a blueprint drawn by pain. And the scariest part? It worked. The world rewards your wound. But now you're here, listening, watching, because something in you knows. You're tired. Not lazy, not lost, just tired. Tired of pretending this hunger is noble when it's actually never-ending. You don't need to burn the whole thing down, but you do need to stop pretending that your fire is all light and no smoke. Let's keep going. We're not done yet, because behind this wound, there's a taskmaster you've been obeying for years, without even realizing it. And its name is shame.
Shame doesn't announce itself like fear. It doesn't come with alarms or raised voices. It's quieter than that, more efficient. Shame is the voice in your head that doesn't yell, "You're worthless." It whispers, "You're only worth something if you win, if you're useful, if you don't mess up, if you make them proud." It's conditional love, internalized. And here's what's dangerous about it. Shame can wear the mask of discipline. It can hide inside your calendar. It can disguise itself as standards. You think you're pushing yourself to be great, but really, you're punishing yourself for being human. Let's get clear on how this works. Shame isn't guilt. Guilt says, "I did something bad." Shame says, "I am bad." And when that belief takes root early, the rest of your life becomes a PR campaign to prove it wrong. This is why so many ambitious people are secretly never satisfied. They could win every award, break every record, get every round of applause, and still feel like a fraud. Because none of it sticks. It's never enough. Why? Because shame doesn't feed on success. It feeds on the fear of not having it. There's always another goal, another milestone, another number. And if you stop running, that old voice might catch up. Let me show you what this looks like in real life. The CEO who wakes up at 4 a.m. to outwork competitors, but can't sit still with his own family for more than 5 minutes without checking emails, that's shame. The overachieving student with a 4.0 GPA who spirals after getting a B+, that's shame. The single mom who works 3 jobs, not just to provide, but because deep down she feels like she has to earn back the right to rest or feel joy, that's shame too. It's the invisible taskmaster, the one that doesn't beat you from the outside, it programs you to do it yourself. Here's where it gets darker. Shame doesn't just tell you you're not enough. It convinces you that if you ever stopped striving, the truth of your inadequacy would finally be exposed. So what do? You hustle. You overachieve. You post. You collect evidence that you are worthy. Every raise, every follower, every round of applause. And still, it doesn't land. Because shame doesn't collect trophies. It collects ammo. Even your success becomes proof of the lie. If I had to work this hard to be valued, maybe I was never worth anything to begin with. Let's pause there. Take a breath. Now, imagine for a second that everything you're chasing, status, wealth, respect, disappeared overnight. Who are you without your achievements? Really sit with it. If that question makes your stomach twist, you've probably tied your identity to your performance. And shame loves that. Because the more you identify with what you do, the easier it is to control how you feel. If you fail, you fall apart. If you succeed, you're safe. For now. It's a high-stakes game of emotional blackmail. Now let's talk about how shame colonizes your thoughts. It uses the word should like a weapon. You should be more productive. You should be happier. You should be further along by now. Sound familiar? Those shoulds sound like goals, but they're just guilt dressed up as motivation. They don't build you. They hollow you out. Here's something you need to hear. Just because you're high functioning doesn't mean you're not hurting. Shame can live inside success. It often does. In fact, some of the most outwardly put-together people are carrying the heaviest shame loads. They've just learned how to translate pain into productivity. They become the go-to person, the reliable one, the unshakable achiever. But it's not peace, it's pressure. And the praise only deepens the prison. You see, when people celebrate your performance, it reinforces the lie that love is earned. So you keep performing, even when it costs you. Relationships become transactional. Rest feels like weakness. Success becomes your only form of self-worth. And underneath it all, the wound stays open. Unseen, untouched, but always driving. Now let's turn the mirror just a little closer. When was the last time you felt proud of yourself without needing someone else to confirm it? When was the last time you sat with your own thoughts without judging them? When was the last time you succeeded and felt it, not as relief, but as fulfillment? If the answers feel hard to reach, you're not broken. You're just exhausted from carrying shame's invisible rulebook. And here's the worst part. You probably don't even remember when you picked it up. That's how early it starts. A parent's disappointed look, a teacher's comparison, a sibling who got all the praise, a moment you made a mistake and were punished, not comforted. You learned, be perfect or be punished, be useful or be invisible, be strong or be a burden. And now you chase success like it's salvation. But it's not. Because the salvation you're seeking isn't in the future. It's in the part of you that shame taught you to ignore. Your softness, your stillness, your enoughness, without performance. We're going to talk about that later. But first, we need to pull apart the story you've been telling yourself. The one that says you're self-made, independent, a winner. Because behind that narrative is a lie that keeps you stuck. Let's unravel it.
You think you're self-made. You think you pulled yourself up by sheer will, outworked everyone, earned your place in the world through pure determination. But let's be honest. You didn't build yourself from nothing. You built yourself from pain. You built yourself in reaction to something. Maybe it was rejection. Maybe it was invisibility. Maybe it was a silent home where love had to be earned, or a loud one where love was withheld. Either way, you became your own project. You made success your religion. You made productivity your morality. And somewhere along the way, you became both the savior and the prison guard. Here's what I mean. When your sense of worth is wounded early, you don't stop needing love. You just start chasing it through performance. You internalize the idea that you are broken and only success will make you whole again. So, you start building a life, building a self, building a mask. You tell yourself you're proving them wrong, but the truth is, you're still trying to get picked. Picked for admiration, picked for belonging, picked for worth. This is what the Messiah complex looks like in ambition. You don't just want to win. You want to redeem yourself. You want to rescue that younger version of you who never felt good enough by becoming so impressive that no one would dare question your value again. But here's the problem with being your own savior. You never get to stop performing. You never get to rest. You never get to just be, because your identity is built on being needed, admired, and irreplaceable. Even worse, you project this savior role onto others. You attract broken people. You fix, you provide, you overextend. Not because you're generous, but because deep down you're terrified of being unnecessary. If you're not the hero, who are you? This dynamic plays out everywhere. In work, you take on more than you should, believing no one else can do it right. In relationships, you become the caretaker, the emotional anchor, the one who always holds it together. In your self-image, you pretend you're fine even when you're collapsing inside, because vulnerability feels like failure. But what happens when the people around you don't need saving? What happens when there's nothing to prove? What happens when the applause fades? You start to feel hollow, because the savior role only works when there's someone to rescue, something to fix, something to strive for. And when that's gone, you're forced to face the question you've been dodging with every promotion and every perfect performance. Who am I if I'm not succeeding? This is the existential crack in the foundation of high achievement. Most people never look at it. They just build faster, work harder, stay busy, but the crack grows. And eventually, success stops feeling like freedom. It feels like maintenance, like you're just trying to keep up the illusion of invincibility you worked so hard to create. You're not chasing joy anymore. You're managing fear. You know this if you've ever felt more anxious after a win instead of relieved, because every win raises the bar higher, and now you have more to lose, more image to maintain, more proof to generate that you're still worthy. That's not ambition. That's emotional debt, and the interest compounds. Let's go even deeper. The self-made myth thrives in cultures where emotional needs are shamed. If you grew up hearing "stop crying," "be strong," or "don't be dramatic," you probably learned to suppress pain and overvalue performance. So you learned how to be competent, not connected. You learned how to be productive, not present. You learned how to be admired, not truly known. And then society rewarded you for it. Your trauma response became a marketable skill. Wow, you're so driven, such a high achiever, always on your game. They clapped while you crumbled because they didn't see the cost. But you did. You felt it in your nervous system, in the nights you couldn't sleep, in the days that felt like war dressed up as routine. So let's drop the illusion. You're not self-made. You're shame-shaped. And that's not your fault. But it is your responsibility now, because if you don't unravel this false identity, it will run your life until it ruins it. You'll build a house of achievements and still feel homeless inside. You'll be surrounded by admirers and still feel unknown. You'll be successful on paper and still feel like a scared kid trying to be good enough. That's the trap, and it's time to see it for what it is. Let me ask you something. If your success came with no recognition, would you still chase it? If your work didn't earn praise, would you still do it? If your identity wasn't tied to achievement,
who would you be? If those questions unsettle you, good. That's the point. Because what this really comes down to is not money or power or achievement. It's about worth. And you've been outsourcing yours for too long. We're not here to shame your ambition. We're here to unmask it, to separate what's true desire from trauma, to peel back the identity you built for survival and ask, do you still need it? Because next, we're going to talk about the roles you were assigned as a kid. Not the ones you chose, but the ones you adapted to just to stay safe. They didn't die when you grew up. They just evolved. And now, they're running the show. Let's name them.
You didn't become who you are by accident. You became who you had to be. Because kids don't get to choose authenticity over safety. They choose whatever version of themselves ensures they won't be abandoned, rejected, or punished. And what you call personality as an adult might actually be a role you were forced to play as a child. Let's name them. Maybe you were the golden child, the one who got love for being perfect. You learned early that achievement equals attention, so you overachieved. You became the straight-A student, the leader, the example. But underneath all that excellence was fear. If you failed, who would you be? Or maybe you were the caretaker, the emotional sponge for your parents. You were the one who smoothed things over, read the room, stayed quiet, kept peace. You weren't allowed to have needs, only to meet everyone else's. So now you're the strong one, the one who never breaks, the one who people lean on, and who secretly resents how heavy that gets. Or maybe you were the ghost, the invisible one. You stayed out of the way, didn't cause problems, learned not to expect much. And now you crave recognition like oxygen, but sabotage it the moment it gets too close, because being unseen feels familiar, comfortable even. Or maybe you were the scapegoat, blamed, misunderstood, the black sheep, so you learned to fight, to prove, to defend. And now every workplace becomes a battlefield, every disagreement a war, every success a weapon to say, see, I was never the problem. These childhood roles didn't disappear when you turned 18. They upgraded. They got job titles. They got goals. They got followers. But they're still serving the same function: survival. And here's the trap. As long as these roles remain unexamined, they become prisons. You become the adult who can't stop winning because failure feels like annihilation. The adult who can't say no because you were conditioned to always be helpful. The adult who keeps people at a distance because vulnerability was never safe. The adult who needs to prove your worth in every room because you were once blamed for things you couldn't control. Let that sink in. Your ambition might just be your childhood survival script with a LinkedIn account. Think about it. How often do you feel free in your success? And how often do you feel trapped by your own standards? Because when these roles are running the show, you don't have goals, you have compulsions. You're not chasing dreams, you're chasing relief. From the pain of being unseen, from the burden of being perfect, from the fear of being irrelevant. And the worst part? You can't even celebrate your wins, because the role doesn't allow it. The golden child can't rest. There's always a higher bar. The caretaker can't focus on herself. Someone always needs something. The ghost can't believe compliments. They don't stick. The scapegoat can't stop fighting. They don't know who they are without a battle. So you stay stuck. Successful, respected, admired, but stuck. Let me hit you with something hard. Your success isn't freedom if it's just a sophisticated way to reenact your childhood. That's not growth. That's a loop. You're not evolving. You're coping, just at a higher income bracket. Now here's the pivot. Naming the role is the first act of rebellion, because once you name it, you can ask the real question, do I want to keep playing it? You get to choose now. You're not a kid anymore. You don't need to earn love through performance. You don't need to stay safe by being small, perfect, useful, or angry. You get to rewrite the script. But first, you have to admit you're still following the old one. Here's how that might sound. I'm not overworking because I love my job. I'm overworking because rest feels dangerous. I'm not always available because I'm kind. I'm always available because I'm terrified of being abandoned. I'm not a perfectionist because I have high standards. I'm a perfectionist because I learned that mistakes lead to punishment. That kind of honesty, it's nuclear. It breaks patterns that have been running for decades. And here's where it gets really interesting. When you stop performing the role, people get confused. Your boss might notice you setting boundaries. Your partner might see you less eager to fix things. Your friends might hear you say no for the first time. They might push back, not because they're cruel, but because they're used to the version of you that performed. Let them be confused. You're not here to maintain their comfort. You're here to reclaim your truth. The truth is, your worth was never supposed to be earned through roles. It was supposed to be remembered. But you forgot because survival demanded forgetting. So now you're remembering, and it hurts. But it also heals. You're shedding the roles, not to become someone new, but to finally be the person you were before shame told you to shapeshift. But don't worry, this doesn't kill ambition. It just purifies it. Because once you stop chasing success to survive, you can start building from clarity, not compulsion. And that's what we're going to explore next. Because believe it or not, ambition can be honest, but only if you stop using it as anesthesia. We're going to talk about the addiction that's hardest to see, the one society celebrates while your soul rots behind the curtain. Let's go there.
Let's say the quiet part out loud. You're addicted to success. Not in the poetic, motivational quote kind of way. In the actual, chemical, body-wired, survival-linked kind of way. And no one tells you that, because this addiction doesn't wreck your life in obvious ways. It makes it look incredible. On the outside, you're not strung out in a gutter, you're not losing your job, you're not ruining your relationships, or maybe you are, but slowly, subtly, elegantly. Success addiction is the most socially acceptable form of self-destruction. It looks like over-delivering. It looks like being the first one in and the last one out. It looks like always knowing the answer, always being in control, always on your grind. But underneath, you're not chasing growth. You're chasing relief. Relief from the inner voice that says, you're still not enough. Every accomplishment hits like a drug. You feel the high, the validation, the applause, the brief hit of invincibility. Then it fades, and you need the next one. So you double down. More hustle, more optimization, more crushing it. But the more you win, the more fragile it all starts to feel. Because now, there's a lot to lose. You've built an identity on your ability to outperform, outsmart, and outwork. What happens if you slip? What happens if someone younger, smarter, more hungrier comes along? What happens if you burn out? What happens if you just don't care anymore? That terrifies you Because if you're not addicted to the chase, what's left? You. And you're not sure you like being alone with that version of yourself. The quiet one. The one without titles or metrics or attention. But that version? That's where the healing lives. We live in a world that romanticizes the hustle. Success addiction is treated like virtue. You get promoted for it, praised for it, held up as an example of what everyone else should be doing. You become the blueprint, while slowly bleeding out behind the scenes. Because here's the thing nobody wants to admit. You can win everything and still feel nothing. There's no award for emotional clarity, no promotion for spiritual peace, no likes for inner stillness. So you ignore those needs. You tell yourself, I'll rest when I get there. But there is a mirage, because once you get there, you raise the bar again and again and again. This is the dopamine loop. It's not ambition, it's biochemical. You hit a goal, you feel a high, then the baseline shifts. What used to feel impressive now feels expected. So you chase harder, but the returns keep diminishing. Until one day, you look around and realize you've built your entire identity around something that never loved you back. Productivity doesn't care about you. Success doesn't hug you when you're tired. Prestige doesn't tuck you in when you can't sleep. So you turn to control. You micromanage your schedule, your goals, your image. You try to control your life so tightly that nothing unexpected can happen. Because the unexpected, that's where the feelings live. And you're not trying to feel, you're trying to escape. But let me ask you something brutal. What would happen if you failed publicly? Not a small failure, a real one. A burn it all down, crash and rebuild moment. Would you survive it? Not financially, psychologically. If your self-worth depends on being impressive, then failure isn't just a setback, it's an identity crisis. And that's the core of success addiction. You don't know who you are without your wins. So you keep feeding the machine, even when it's killing you. Maybe you already feel it. The quiet panic when you're idle. The depression after a big launch. The resentment toward people who don't need to prove anything. That's not laziness. That's the withdrawal symptoms of over-identifying with achievement. You're not tired from the work. You're tired from why you're working. You're not exhausted from your ambition. You're exhausted from performing your worth every day just to feel okay inside your own skin. So what's the way out? You have to let success be optional. Let that land. Optional. Not your lifeline, not your salvation, not your therapy. You have to detach who you are from what you produce. That doesn't mean becoming apathetic. It means redefining power. Because real power isn't found in proving yourself. It's in not needing to. And that scares people. Because without the addiction, you're just you. The human, the uncertain, the soft, the version you buried under years of achievement and control. But guess what? That version has value too. Not because of what it can do, but because of what it feels. Joy, grief, wonder, fear, realness. You've spent years trying to avoid those parts, but those parts are where your soul lives. Let's get practical for a second. Try this. Take a day off without earning it. Let a text go unanswered. Say no to something that would look good. Create something with no audience in mind. See what comes up. The guilt, the anxiety, the disorientation.
That's your nervous system detoxing from decades of proving. Ride it out. Don't run. Because what's waiting on the other side isn't laziness. It's liberation. And once you find that center, once you taste what it's like to exist without performing, you'll realize that your ambition isn't dead. It's just, honest now. Which brings us to the final shift, the one most people never make: healing. Not as a detour from ambition, but as its true foundation. Let's rebuild from the inside.
Here's the thing. When you stop trying to earn your worth, you don't become lazy. You become dangerous. Because now your ambition isn't poisoned by desperation. It's powered by vision. You're no longer hustling to be loved. You're building because you love. That's the shift. Most people are scared to heal because they think pain is what makes them productive. They think if they lose the fire of shame, they'll lose their edge. But that fire, it burns you too. It devours your peace, your presence, your ability to enjoy what you already built. But when the fire calms, something wild happens. You stop obsessing over being the best and start becoming the most you. You stop chasing loud wins and start creating quiet revolutions. Not out of fear, not out of ego, but out of clarity. And that's when you become truly unstoppable. Not because you need to prove something, but because you don't. So no, healing doesn't kill ambition. It kills the illusion that you need success to be enough. And once that dies, something honest, something powerful is finally free to live.